Hey, happy, beautiful, amazing day. Dr. Bob Rakowski here, May 7, 2020, with our SARS-CoV-2 science update. So the question we're asking today is, do we know enough to make intelligent choices? And the great news is we've had different experimental models. So let's take a look at what's working and what's not. So US and Sweden, very different approaches. This article says that Sweden has high death rates. We'll look at that in just a moment, but they didn't quarantine, they didn't lock down, they didn't enforce social distancing. What they said is, hey, here's what this bug is. It's pretty bad. If you're immune compromised, if you're elderly, protect yourself. And by the way, if you know someone who's immune compromised or elderly, protect them by staying away from them. So that was the rules in Sweden. So let's look at US flu death statistics. This is right out of the CDC. You can go back to 2010 and 2011 season all the way through 2018. And what you're going to find out is we see on a light year, 23,000 deaths, on a big year, 61,000 deaths. When you look at the infections and then the death rate, it looks like it goes from about 0.09% through 0.1762% on the high end. So now when we start looking at Sweden, this was posted the other day, it basically said 1/3 of the Stockholm population had the corona infection. So now let's look at the data. This is very recent out of Statista.com. And we can see there was, a very huge difference in age demographics. Certainly any life is precious. Any death is significant. So what about the younger people that died? And I'll say younger, below 50 for sure is going to be younger. In the entire country of Sweden, we got 39, 46, 47 deaths below the age of 50. I would have to guess that somehow, some way, these people had something unique in their systems, something immune compromised, maybe a comorbidity like they were fighting cancer or something like that. But no doubt, every death is sad. Young deaths, can we say they're sadder? All life is precious, but it's tragic. It certainly is tragic. Then we look at over 70, and then we see that better than 86% of the deaths came over 70, and over 64%, almost 2/3 over 80. So we know the older age demographic is at risk. So I gave in all of Sweden a 20% infection rate. It's probably significantly higher than that. But New York had a 13.9% based on population testing. So what is the probable death rate in Sweden with the if the 20% of the population is infected? That's about 0.146. About 0.146. So this is a YouTube video. I would encourage you to look it up and watch it. It's brief enough, 4 minutes and 24 seconds. Title of it, Swedish scientists ask how will countries end the lockdowns without increasing deaths? And his name is Johan Gieseke, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But basically what he said is, look, this appears to be worse, a little worse than a seasonal flu. We didn't shut down the country. We're operational. How are you going to do it without really normalizing the deaths over time, but crippling your economy? So Governor Cuomo got on there and he says, this is shocking because now 2/3 of people coming to the hospital with COVID have been staying home. So they got COVID in their home. I want you to think about that. That lockdown didn't work. The cases coming in were in their home. So now let's go with his statement. This seems to be a little worse than the seasonal flu. Probable death rate in Sweden with no lockdown, 0.146. Looks like it's coming in on the high end of a stronger flu, but not the worst of the worst, right? A little worse than the typical seasonal flu. We showed the death rate graph from infectious disease. We see that there's a spike whenever there is a pandemic like the 1918 flu pandemic. Death rate calculated throughout the human population for the world. This has been tracked very significantly, very smooth curve. Where are we? I'll show you in a moment. Right where we should be, no spike. We didn't have a massive increase in the death rate. So what do we see? Worldometers today. Here's our population. Here's how much of the year has passed. Here are the actual deaths to date. So at the calculated death rate, if we ended at 2019 at 759 per 10,000, what if we went up just one per 10,000, 760? This is where the world death rate is. And I've shared this before. This is pretty shocking. US is supposed to have 8.88 deaths per 1,000 people. But now take a look at this and we'll find out, very easy to make the calculations. US is down about 71,000 deaths. So it doesn't look like crippling the economy was a good idea. It also doesn't look like lockdown was effective. So if it's not effective and it's really, really harmful, why would we continue with it? So there's a success formula for life. Look at what you're doing. Find out what's working. Find out what's not working. Do more of what is working and less or not at all of what's not working. I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful.